Hi everyone, and welcome back to a special edition of Tech Bytes. My name is Ryan Casey, and today I want to spend a few minutes walking you through some of the major differences between a Zoom meeting and webinar. This is also going to conclude our three-part series called How to Become a Legend of Zoom. If you're like me, you've spent the last month or two participating in quite a few Zoom meetings and webinars, so although you might understand some of the basic differences, it's really important to understand the limitations of each so you know how to pick the right event for your needs, especially when maybe you come back to school in the fall and you possibly will be continuing with some online or distance learning. So let's take the next few minutes, check it out, and let's get started. So before we dive into the actual platform, MASSP created a nice little one-page document that's going to go along with this video, so I'll put the link down in the video summary and also on your screen here, that really outlines some of the basic differences, like I mentioned, between a Zoom meeting and a Zoom webinar. And it'll also walk you through some considerations to think about before you decide what is the best meeting type or event type for your needs. So for example, a Zoom meeting, it's really meant to be a collaborative thing, whether that's internally with staff or with students, all having the ability to share. They're going to be able to talk all at the same time. They're going to be able to share their video feed. They're going to be able to take over and share the screen if there's some sort of document or file that they want to share out with everyone else. Webinars are much more locked down, and it's meant to be more of a one-way communication. So you might have a host or a group of panelists. Those are the only ones that will be speaking, most likely. Those will be the only ones that are sharing their screen. It's going to be more for demonstration, walking through a presentation. You can move people, promote and demote them to panelists and then back to a regular attendee, but there's much more controls by the host that have to be used in order to do that. So that's really on the basic level the difference between a Zoom meeting and a Zoom webinar. Each has some different features unique to each side, if you will, that I'm going to walk you through here. But some other considerations to think about as well is, are these events truly public, or do you need registration? Is a question and answer tool needed, or are you simply going to use the chat? Do you need to record this? If so, what type of recording view will be used? And again, some additional questions regarding panelists and hosts. So again, as you are planning an event, whether it's for parents or students, from the entire building, or a small group, just a classroom, or just a grade level, or just your staff, these are all things to consider. But let's go ahead and jump into some of those key features between the two now. So first, we're going to start with a Zoom meeting. And you'll see right now, I'm actually in a Zoom meeting. Currently, I have my host control, so I am the host of this meeting. Those options are down here at the bottom. Again, remember, in a meeting, anyone can talk. Anyone can have their video, so you will want to think about maybe some norms or protocols to consider so it doesn't get maybe a little crazy or a little messy while you are trying to run a meeting. Down at the bottom, just a couple of important features I do want to point out. So number one, everyone can share a screen. So I'm going to go back to sharing that one-pager again, and while sharing, everybody has the ability to annotate. And you can see there's a lot of different ways to do that with text or a spotlight. You can choose colors, but so you can kind of treat it like a whiteboard, if you will. There's even a whiteboard feature in Zoom that you can use as well, but if you're using a document, I can draw attention to something by circling. I can underline different parts. We can kind of have a think tank if you want. And at any time, you can clear that out. Others can also annotate on the screen as well, not just the person who is sharing it. So you really can get a lot of different ideas going. Again, consider the protocols and whatnot that you want to use. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. The chat feature will be used. So there is no Q&A on a Zoom meeting. That's only on a webinar. So it's really important, again, that people understand who they are sending a message. By default, it's sent to everyone. If you want to have a private message get sent to maybe just the host or to somebody else privately in the chat, that can be done. You can also send links in the chat, and there's also ways that you can send files back and forth if you need it as well. And then the last feature about a Zoom meeting, which I think is the coolest, it's really, really unique feature, is the breakout rooms. Now, I don't have anybody else in this meeting with me. I'm doing this Tech Byte by myself. But what's really cool is you can actually assign participants up to 99 different breakout rooms. So if you want to do kind of small group or cooperative learning structures, whether with your students in a classroom or in a faculty meeting, you can do that. You can let Zoom figure it out for you. You just tell them how many rooms you want, and it'll actually tell you how many participants would be in each room. So it'll do the math for you, and then it'll either assign them automatically, meaning random, or you can manually put people into groups. So if you had people sign up ahead of time, or maybe you want to mix the different ability levels of your students on a certain content area, you could set this up manually and create a breakout room. And then you'll shoot them off to these breakout rooms. You as the host can even jump into those different breakout rooms and listen and interact. You can shoot messages out to everybody to say, hey, we're going to be returning in 30 seconds or 1 minute, 5 minutes. And then everybody will return back to this main meeting room. And best of all about breakout rooms is you can then shoot them out again. So you can do this back and forth, again, all within the same meeting, keeping them in the same groups, or even moving them out into different groups each time. But again, that's done from this breakout rooms menu at the bottom. Again, one of probably the best features of a Zoom meeting. So now we are in a Zoom webinar. And you'll notice down at the bottom that my host controls look a little different because, again, there are different features for a webinar than there are for a meeting. So again, there's still a chat. There's still the ability to share the screen, but now remember it's only the host and people who have been promoted to a panelist, so not regular attendees. Again, in a webinar, people can't just begin talking. You would have to allow them to talk. So you might see something like what's called a raise a hand feature, meaning that an attendee can raise a hand. You'll get kind of notified. There'll be a little hand sign next to their name, and then you can click on it to either message them or to allow them to talk. 2 buttons you'll see that down here that are new is polling, which allows you to add a question or ask questions to get some sort of really simple multiple choice or true and false type of response, if you will, right? Have people make a selection to give you some feedback. You can actually set these polls up ahead of time, or you can begin creating them on the fly if you want. So that's a really cool feature. The other one is the Q&A feature. So again, attendees can pose a question for the panelists to look at and review. You can then type an answer back, or you can even let them know that you are going to answer the question, live, verbally, and then you'll actually mark it as answered, and it'll track which questions are open versus which ones have been answered. So even those who maybe weren't listening or missed it or came to the webinar late can still read those questions and answers. There's actually a setting that you can turn on to allow attendees to upvote. So just like they see on Facebook, the little thumbs up like sign, if you will, if they see a really good question, and this way they don't have to retype the question or ask it a million times, they can hit the thumbs up icon, and it'll shuffle that question to the top, and it'll let you know that, hey, this is a really popular question, we better address it. So that is the Q&A feature in a webinar. So the last feature or two that I want to talk to you about works regardless if you're in a meeting or a webinar. And the first thing is security. So in terms of making your event as safe as possible so you don't have unwanted guests or visitors in your event. So when you're in a meeting, you specifically get this nice little security button, which gives you some additional controls. So for example, locking a meeting or locking a webinar means that even though somebody might have the ID or the passcode to enter, they will not enter. Let's say you're only giving them the first 5 minutes to enter, then after that you want to lock this down so nobody can get into the event. Specifically in a meeting, it's much more free-flowing, the communication, right? Everybody can share, everyone can talk, everyone can chat. You can turn some of those things off if you do want to put some additional parameters. So security and safety, again, going back to what I said at the beginning, maybe having people register for an event might be a smart play. And lastly, record. If you really want to do asynchronous learning, so people can access these things that are going on at any time, they don't actually all have to be on the computer at the same time and the same day, I would strongly consider recording these. You can record them to the cloud, or you can record them to your local machine and then post them on your Google Classroom or on your school website, YouTube channel. This way everybody can access it. Okay, and that's going to do it for this edition of Tech Bytes and the How to Become a Legend of Zoom series. For more information on this, you can head over to MASSP.com to see the other parts of the series, or of course the MASSP YouTube channel. Thanks for watching, everybody, and have a great day.